Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're unpacking an absolutely massive irony from the ancient world. You know, when we picture the mighty Han Dynasty, we naturally imagine these untouchable emperors dictating history right from the throne room. But what if the true compass of the empire was spinning somewhere else entirely? Let's dive into the fascinating and honestly pretty terrifying wheel of imperial fate that turned behind closed doors.
So, it's a question that pretty much challenges everything we think we know about ancient power structures. I mean, sure, emperors undoubtedly held absolute executive power on paper, but the classical historical text, the Shiji, reveals a completely different reality on the ground. It shows us that their consorts and the sheer unpredictable whims of fate surrounding them were often the ones actually dictating the empire's true destiny. All right, let's get into Section 1. Power behind the throne, and specifically, the system of imperial marriage.
To really wrap our heads around this, we've got to start with this foundational idea from the ancient historian Sima Qian. He argued that these royal marriages, they were never just personal matters. They were the absolute bedrock of ancient statecraft. Sima Qian actually believed that the harmony of the universe itself was tied to these unions, and this philosophy introduces us to a really critical political mechanism that would come to completely define the Han Dynasty.
And that mechanism is the weiqi, the maternal relatives. Listen, when a woman caught the emperor's eye, she didn't just elevate herself. The weiqi became the ultimate power brokers in ancient China. Think of it as state-sponsored nepotism, but on a scale that's almost unimaginable. They could ride the coattails of these favored women from absolute obscurity, from the literal lowest rungs of society, all the way up to the highest ranks of nobility.
Moving right along to Section 2, Destiny and Imperial Prophecies, or as I like to call it, the sheer whims of fate.
Now, if you're thinking these powerful women were hand-picked for their royal bloodlines or some mastermind strategic value, think again. It was almost always presented as this undeniable supernatural destiny. And look at how rapidly fate moved here. We have Lady Bo, a former prisoner of war, who dreamt of a celestial dragon resting on her belly before giving birth to the future Emperor Wen. Then there's Lady Wang, who dreamt of the sun literally falling into her bosom before birthing Emperor Wu. Oh, and Wei Zifu? She went from being a lowly songstress in a princess's household to becoming the empress of the entire realm. These weren't calculated political climbs. They were viewed as the literal mandate of heaven manifesting through women.
And get this, fate didn't just watch over the women. It protected their families in wild, totally unbelievable ways. Take Du Xiaojun. He was the brother of Empress Do. As a kid, he was kidnapped, sold into slavery, and eventually forced to work in a coal mine. One day, the mountain bank just completely collapses, crushing over 100 sleeping workers, and he was the sole survivor. He miraculously escapes, follows a prophecy, and reunites with his sister in the capital, who, by the way, had just been crowned empress. I mean, talk about the ultimate rags to riches twist of fate.
Which brings us to Section 3, the rise of maternal families, and the ultimate coattail effect.
So what actually happens when destiny drops the ultimate prize right into your lap? Well, when a woman was elevated, her family hit the absolute political jackpot, securing a sheer volume of power that is honestly hard to fathom. The Zhao family and the Wang family each secured 3 marquee titles. But the Wei family, the family of that former songstress Wei Zifu, they secured 5 separate marquee titles for their relatives. This was a complete overnight transformation. Everyday commoners who used to weave clothes or sing for their supper were suddenly untouchable military and political elites.
This power shift was so extreme and so visible to the everyday person that the entire culture kind of flipped on its head. Commoners actually started singing this folk song in the streets, literally wishing for daughters instead of sons. Because in the Han Dynasty, having a beautiful daughter favored by fate was basically a winning lottery ticket to unimaginable wealth and status for your whole extended family.
But of course, there's a flip side. Here's Section 4, Jealousy and Court Intrigue, the dark side of the harem.
Because all that sudden wealth, it came with a super grim reality. I mean, when the stakes are this high and your entire family's survival depends on the fleeting affection of one single man, you end up with a deeply paranoid, cutthroat environment. The Shiji outlines a terrifyingly toxic culture. Women like Consort Li and Empress Chen were utterly destroyed by this pressure cooker. To keep the emperor's favor or just to wipe out competitors, women resorted to wild accusations of using dark, seductive magic. They'd command servants to spit on their rivals' backs just to curse them. It was this desperate, deadly bid for attention where one single wrong move meant death.
Check out this incredibly intense psychological story. You've got Lady Yin and Lady Xing, both highly favored by the emperor, but he completely forbade them from seeing each other. Driven absolutely mad by jealousy, Lady Yin demands to see her rival. So the emperor sends a decoy, a lesser attendant dressed up in magnificent, beautiful clothes. But Lady Yin sees right through it instantly. She tells him this woman lacks the aura of a true lord's companion. So the emperor finally sends the real Lady Xing, completely unadorned, wearing plain old clothes. And the moment she walks in, upon seeing her undeniable presence, Lady Yin just drops her head and weeps in total despair. She realized instantly she was completely outmatched.
It's exactly like this brutal ancient proverb says, "A beautiful woman is the enemy of an ugly one." The harem was a terrifying zero-sum game. Beauty wasn't just an aesthetic, it was a literal weapon. And if your rival's weapon was sharper than yours, your entire family's future was basically dead in the water.
Which brings us to Section 5, Emperor Wu's ruthless solution, breaking the cycle.
You see, this endless, toxic cycle of maternal families completely running the show, it terrified Emperor Wu. As he approached the end of his life, he decided he was going to break the cycle with a truly shocking historical twist. To make absolutely sure his young heir wouldn't become a puppet controlled by a powerful mother, he took some incredibly methodical and frankly chilling actions. First, he signaled his succession plans by commissioning a painting of the ancient Duke of Zhao carrying the young King Cheng, which was a classic symbol of loyal regency. Then, he deliberately found a petty excuse to brutally scold his own favorite consort, Lady Gouyi, the mother of his heir. Despite her bowing and begging for her life, he sent her straight to the prison at the Sweet Springs Palace to die.
And here is the crucial takeaway, his chillingly pragmatic justification for doing it. When his attendants asked him, why on earth would you kill the mother of the future emperor? He basically called them fools who didn't understand history. He believed an empire simply could not survive a child emperor who was ruled by a powerful, unchecked mother. To save the Han Dynasty from the Wei Qin, he fully believed he had to execute the very woman he loved. Let's wrap this up with Section 6, Pawns or Players of Fate. Sima Qian's conclusion.
This brings us right back to where we started, back to Sima Qian's idea of this unexplainable, unstoppable force of human destiny. Just look at the final outcomes for these women. Despite their magical rises, going from weavers and songstresses to the heights of unimaginable power, favored by dreams of dragons and suns, almost all of them met incredibly tragic ends. They died of anxiety, they were deposed for not having children, or they were outright executed as political liabilities.
So it leaves us with this final, genuinely fascinating question to chew on. Did these women ever truly hold the reins of the Han Dynasty? Or, despite all the titles, the endless wealth, and the grand prophecies, were they really just pieces on the board in a much larger, ruthless game of imperial survival? The wheel of fate lifted them right up to the heavens, but ultimately, it almost always crushed them on the way back down.